All right, we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Fulford, and I'm the CEO here at IPAC. And I'm thrilled to let you know that we're so excited about this particular session. We've got three great speakers and a moderator. And of course, this is our session on cultivating success in young Black professionals. So I'd like just to let you all know that we had over 600 people sign up for this. And one of the things that we like to do is determine where you're all participating from. So if I could ask you just to use the chat feature and just tell us where you're participating from, that would be very much appreciated. So in terms of the format for this afternoon, we're going to have our presenters introduce themselves, and then we're going to have our moderator ask a few questions. We do want you to have an opportunity to ask questions. And we would ask that you please use the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of the screen, and just enter your questions into the Q&A feature, not into the chat, but into the Q&A. And that way our moderator, he can find them. And so we'll certainly leave at least 15 minutes at the end for questions from the audience, and we're looking forward to that. Now, I do want to start with a land acknowledgement. And so with participants joining us virtually from coast to coast, we acknowledge and respect the ancestral and unceded territories of all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We encourage everyone here to take the opportunity to learn about the diverse and unique histories, cultures, and aspirations of the people on whose territories you work and live, and to determine how you can take action towards reconciliation. And so again, just enter into the chat feature, let us know where you're participating from. And if you have questions, please enter them into the Q&A feature. I'd now like to introduce our moderator, Yao Bahanda. Yao is with the federal government, and we're thrilled to have him here today. Yao, over to you.
Thank you, David. Bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you for this vibrant and lively discussion. My name is Yao Bahanda, and I will be guiding us through this day's conversation as we celebrate Black History Month, and we will explore the theme of empowering young Black professionals. Je suis le directeur du bureau IDEA au ministère du Patrimoine canadien, où nous travaillons d'arrache-pied. Nous nous évertuons à faire du ministère un lieu de travail, un lieu où tout le monde se sent accueilli et peut contribuer au mandat du ministère avec la diversité d'expériences, les talents dont on dispose. And I can say that it's a privilege because my current role as the director of the IDEA office at PCH allows me to channel my passion for inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility into meaningful change. Outside of work, I'm deeply rooted in Ottawa with my family, where I am actively involved in local community initiatives, furthering my commitment to public service and engagement. But as you know, life isn't all work, and I have a deep love of soccer, and I'm excited about the 2026 FIFA World Cup in North America. As David has just introduced the event, we have three powerful, excellent panelists today, Caroline, Faith, and Michelle. Each of them brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective that I'm sure will enrich our understanding. And I would like our panelists to let us know a bit about themselves. We will start with you, Caroline Alexander. Please introduce yourself and share about your role in the public service.
Thank you so much, Yao. And good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are at. It is so wonderful to see people from all across this great country. So I am privileged to be here with you this afternoon, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Caroline Alexander. I'm currently the Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Infrastructure and also the Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Legislative Affairs within the Government of Ontario. And this is my third deputy role that I have had within the government of Ontario. So prior to being the Deputy Minister of Infrastructure, I was also the Deputy Minister of Seniors and Accessibility. And before that, I was the Comptroller General, which is also a Deputy Minister role with Treasury Board Secretariat. So just by way of background, I am an accountant by trade, but have worked in many different diverse types of roles throughout my career, and have also worked with the federal, provincial, and municipal governments, as well as the broader public sector, so the school board sector. So I do have over 25 years of experience in the public sector in all different types of jobs, and like I said, in all different levels of government as well. And just a little bit about me in terms of my personal, what I do in my personal time. So I love to do hot yoga, especially in the winter. So a day like today, I would love to be in the hot yoga studio. I try to do it at least twice a month. I've also gotten my husband into doing hot yoga as well. And I also enjoy sports, in particular basketball. I'm also a mom and have enough kids to have my own starting five lineup with one substitution. So I'm a very busy mom. It's my pleasure to be here today, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Caroline, for sharing your journey with us. Now, let's turn to Michelle Marage, whose experiences are equally inspiring. Michelle, we would love to hear about your journey and your current role.
Thanks, Yao. So, unlike Charlene, I don't enjoy hot yoga, but I do enjoy regular yoga, if there's such a way to put it. Before I start about myself, I'd just like to acknowledge our ancestors, and that's why we're really here today. So I'd like to say thank you, and the journey continues, and we're here to celebrate Black excellence as well as encourage young Black professionals. So who's Michelle? So I'm an immigrant from Jamaica and have now spent most of my life in Canada. I grew up in a rural area, and so a lot of the evenings we pass the time telling stories. So ghost stories and Anansi stories. I've been a lifelong public servant. So right out of university, I went into the federal public service. I started my career at Health Canada and have worked in many, many departments. I have worked really hard to achieve the successes I have. At each step in my journey, I faced challenges, embraced opportunities, and continued to learn and develop in my roles. And along my journey, I've had excellent support from mentors and key people in my life. So right now, I'm the Director General of In-Person Operations, and this is a new phase for me because I'm learning new things and applying my leadership skills in new ways. Now you may be saying, well, she's not so young, right? And that's true. I'm still young at heart. I'm here because I'm happy to share my experiences with you and some of the lessons I've learned along the way. And hopefully that will make your path smoother, as well as inspire you to progress in your careers. C'est tout pour moi, Yao.
Thank you, Michelle. Your story is a testament to perseverance and success. We have our third panelist, Faith Babalola. Faith, we are eager to hear about your path and the insights you will bring to our discussion. Could you tell us a bit about your background and what you do?
Yes, for sure. So I'm also an immigrant from Nigeria, and I came into Canada in 2021 as an international student to study the Master of Public Administration at Johnson Shriyama Graduate School of Public Policy. And so, yes, my journey to the public service began there when I joined the ministry, the Saskatchewan Ministry of Advanced Education, as a policy intern. And there I served at the Deputy Minister's office, working with other interns and co-workers to advance the ministry's priorities. And currently I work as a project manager at the Saskatchewan Ministry of Social Services. And here I work with the project management team to support complex projects in the ministry that are aligned with our priorities. And compared to the other panelists, I don't love yoga, but I'm okay to compete in a sleeping competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Everyone keep it in mind. So thank you, Carlene. Thank you, Michelle, for your introductions. Let's dive into our discussion now. We will start by exploring the personal meaning of Black History Month to each of you. I will start with you, Michelle. As we reflect on Black History Month, could you share with us what this means to you and how it influences your work and life, Michelle?
For sure, Yao. So coming from Jamaica, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Black History Month, I was quite perplexed. For me, we're Black all the time. So why is there a month where there seems to be this focus on being Black? Of course, my thinking and understanding have evolved. And now I understand the importance of the celebration of Black history within the Canadian culture and society. For me, the importance of Black History Month bears significance in two ways. First, it's a period of education and celebration of Black excellence. And personally, I was disappointed trying to understand why the focus seems to be on slavery when we talk about Black History Month. Yes, it's a part of our history, but for me, we're more than that. We were more than that before. There was that period, and we have moved beyond that, and we are more than that. And so for me, we should be teaching Black history and the importance of the contribution to Canadian society. But it's not happening in a systemic way. So I use this period to raise awareness and to educate. So for example, I have a daughter who's just about to finish elementary school. And one of the things my husband and I did to celebrate Black History Month there is we developed the first ever Black History Month event at the school. And we gave away books on Viola Desmond to families that participated. The second thing for me is my husband, daughter, and I were among the estimated 20,000 people in the summer of 2020 during the pandemic that took part in protests and a march to honor George Floyd in front of Parliament Hill. So each February now, for me, it's a stock take period. I reflect on what we've achieved since then. Are we creating a future for our kids that we should be creating? So these are the kinds of reflections and conversations I have during this time. And again, I'll close by saying, for me, it's about Black excellence and how I can contribute to the celebration by really strengthening that exemplary aspect of who we are.
Thank you, Michelle. The future is very important. And Faith, building on Michelle's reflections, how do you see Black History Month as an opportunity to highlight the achievement within our communities, Faith?
Thank you, Yao. For me, I think the Black History Month gives a platform to celebrate who we are as a people, because I kind of feel like sometimes that can get lost in like everyday activities, and it can get lost even in trying to integrate and learn about other people's culture. It also gives the platform to, discuss the struggles we have faced and what we are currently navigating as a people, our achievements and our impact on our community, as well as also giving other people that don't identify as Blacks the opportunity to feel connected, to learn about our culture, and to also celebrate our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. And Carlene, how does this month resonate with you, particularly considering our theme this year?
Yeah, so a lot of what my fellow panelists have said also deeply resonate with me, but I wanted to add in a few other thoughts. And first of all, before I go into that, I wanted to say I saw a comment that said, loving the Black girl magic on the screen. So I just wanted to give a shout out to whoever said that, because I'm loving the Black girl magic that we're seeing here, as well as you too, Yao. black guy magic too, but the black girl magic is really important. But for me, I'm a Black person from Nova Scotia. So my ancestors arrived in this country hundreds of years ago. So this month is very personal for me as I reflect on and celebrate all of the successes and accomplishments of those people who came before me right here in this country, who showed resilience and who helped to build this country. And a lot of people don't really understand that history. So I think that this is a time to celebrate that aspect of our history. I think that it's also a time for all Canadians to despite what your identity is, to learn about the deep and rich history of Black Canadians and Black people all over the world who have contributed to society, and to recognize that it's our collective history. It's not just Black history. So as we celebrate Black History Month, I very much think of something that Jean Augustine once said, which she said, Black history is not just for Black people. Black history is Canadian history. And I think that people need to reflect on that a little bit more. I also feel that it should not just be February when we celebrate and learn about the history of Black people. This should be happening all the time. And then finally, I would say, despite all of the progress that we know that we have made over the years, we know that as Black Canadians and other racialized Canadians, we still face barriers, we still face discrimination, especially in the workplace. And so this is why an event like today is so important to talk about these things. So Black history is a great time for us to truly be reflective and to think about how we're going to keep progressing, how we're going to keep getting better.
Very insightful. I will share that my native country, originally I come from Togo in West Africa, and I will stay with you, Caroline. Turning on our focus to the role of government. In your position now, what initiatives have you observed that support young Black professionals' growth and equitable opportunities?
So I think that this is a really, really important question, and it's something that we should spend a lot of time on in government, is what are we doing and what can we continue to do better than we have done in the past? I think that to have truly diverse and inclusive organizations, we need to take a very deliberate and intentional focus. It's not going to be something that just happens by chance. And I know that various governments across the country are at different stages in implementing equitable programs. But I do want to give a shout out to the OPS, because I think that the OPS, the Ontario Public Service, is pretty advanced in this regard. So I do want to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the Ontario Public Service. So we do have a number of programs and initiatives and commitments that are currently underway. The first thing that I want to talk about is we have what we call the OPS Leadership Pledge. And this is something that was signed by the Secretary of Cabinet, so our head of public service, as well as all deputy ministers. And it commits to creating an inclusive, diverse, equitable, anti-racist, and accessible workplace that's free from discrimination and harassment. And there's 10 very concrete commitments. And a lot of concrete actions have taken place so far, including the creation of a Black Equity Office. So that is a significant action that the OPS has taken to transform and enhance the Black experience in the OPS. So an example of an initiative that the Black Equity Office has been working on has been looking at Black career enhancement programs to address some of the occupational segregation of Black and other racialized women who have been unfairly stuck in administrative roles. So that's a very tangible thing that we are working on. We also have a Diversity Career Champion program, which is a mentorship program that provides career developmental opportunities to employees from underrepresented groups, and it's heavily subscribed. All ministries participate in this. The Black Ontario Public Service Group, or BOPSers as we call them, they have relentlessly been driving change in the OPS for decades. They also have a mentorship program, a career enhancement program that pairs more senior Black employees to those Black employees who are a little newer, more junior, etc. And then one of the initiatives that we recently launched that has been very successful, we launched it just in 2022, is a Black Alliance internship program. So this was in partnership with Franco Noir, an employee resource group. It was a 1-year paid internship pilot. So it was designed for Black and Black bilingual post-secondary interns that graduated within the last 5 years. We received over 3,500 applications. So the demand is there, the talent is there. There are a lot of young Black talented people who are looking to come into public service. These interns, they all landed, 90% of them landed contracts within the government after the pilot. And we're now continuing on with that type of work through our regular Ontario internship program, but there'll be a stream for Black post-secondary graduates. So we are doing a lot in this space. And what I would also like to say is it's not just about recruitment. So it's not just about getting young Black professionals in the door. It is about that mentorship. It's about the networking. It's about providing those supports to ensure that we are able to promote a more inclusive environment that promotes belonging.
Very interesting. I think you are already you already anticipated one of my next questions. But Michelle, on the federal side, could you help us identify a few programs or practices that have made a tangible impact on equity in the federal government?
Thanks, Yao. Somewhat similar to Charlene's in terms of the high level. But before I get into what is being done, I'd like to take us to the nexus of the question. We have this question, we're talking about it because clearly there's inequities, right? And so within the federal public service, I'd like to set the context. So the government has acknowledged that systemic racism exists. There's been numerous studies, Senate reports that document this. The Prime Minister himself on February 13, 2018, said that it's time Canadians acknowledge that racism and unconscious bias against Black people exist in this country. We've seen the outpouring and support collectively coming from the George Floyd incident. And having lived it, to me, that was a spark within the federal public service. It sparked and it helped us give voice to what we've been feeling and trying to achieve. And that pushed the federal public service to what I think culminated in the clerk's call to action. And so today, that story continues in terms of the challenges we face. There was just a recent report from the Senate on discrimination, largely against Black employees at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. So that's a snapshot of what we continue to live with within the federal public service. Now, what is the government doing to help? Having acknowledged this, having put out the clerk call to action, we see that the government endorsed the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent and has actually extended its efforts in this area until 2028. There's also an anti-racism strategy for a whole of government approach to combat systemic racism. And then there's a federal anti-racism secretariat. But for me, concretely, the clerk's call to action and subsequent iterations are where some of the strongest efforts and action plans have been communicated and are being followed up and being put into action. So similar to what Charlene said, these include mentoring, sponsoring, promoting Black employees based on merit. And I want to emphasize merit because there is a tendency to believe that Black people are getting promoted because they're favored. We still have to meet all the merit criteria that the function requires, and we have to excel in those positions. And we do continue to deliver. So As a result of these efforts, the number of Black executives, particularly within the federal public service, has grown quite substantially. But we continue to need to make progress at the middle management and entry level positions to embrace, to recruit, retain, and embrace young Black professionals. The last thing I want to mention is self-identification of employment equity groups. So the government has had this ever since I joined, which was some time ago, but visible minorities particularly have tended to be reluctant to self-identify because they didn't see any benefits coming from it. Mm-hmm. Now, with the shift from the clerk's call to action, we're actually seeing tangible use of that data. So for example, recently in the department that I'm in, access to language training, which has been a challenge for visible minorities, especially Blacks, we now have remedial, what I call remedial actions. So using that self-identification information, priorities being given to racialized employees, again, with an emphasis on Blacks, to get the language training they need, which is essential to progress your career. And for those who are not familiar with the federal public service, to advance your career, you need to be bilingual. If French is your first language, you need to learn English and vice versa. And so that was one of the big barriers to progression for us in moving up within the system. And so using that data, we're now seeing tangible applications of it. And I use that as one example of approaches that are being applied within the federal government. There's quite a few more, but I'll pause there, Yao, to give my fellow panelists an opportunity to contribute.
Thank you, Michelle. Faith, it's a catchy one. Could you share your perspective on your government's role in this important work? And if I may add one question, you can share with us the challenges that you believe young Black professionals face and how do this shape our approach to fostering inclusive work environment, Faith?
Thank you, Yao. Coming from the perspective of the government of Saskatchewan, I'd say for sure that we're doing a good job in the aspect of recruitment. That's very stable in job applications and self-identifying as a visible minority. I would say we're also, there's been a lot of activities around diversity and inclusion initiatives and programs. If I may add though, just thinking about what the other panelists have said and feeling inspired, I would add that there probably needs to be more data and reporting because I feel like we're only able to track progress when we have good statistics such as how well are we doing in terms of recruitment, how many Black professionals have joined in the past year, how many have left, how well are we represented in middle management and leadership, what are the challenges Black professionals are currently facing, and is there an avenue for improvement? And just tailoring that to challenges that I believe young Black professionals face. One of them would definitely be mentorship and sponsorship. So mentorship because many times it's rare to see a lot of representation in leadership. And I feel like for many Black professionals, speaking for myself, we understand what a good work ethic is. We know how to work hard. But many times we are stuck on how to navigate the organizational, navigate career advancement. And this is where a mentor or sponsor comes in. So a mentor could be more like an experienced person or a more knowledgeable person that helps you or nurtures you through your professional life, or for example in the public service, helps you to navigate through what the public service is. And a sponsor is someone that really advocates for you, puts your name out there, talks about what you do well, your skills, and I kind of feel like this builds up well when there is a relationship where leadership can share with the new professionals, and then that mutual sharing can lead to better understanding. Another challenge, which I already talked about, is Black leadership and underrepresentation of Black individuals in leadership roles. For one, I feel like when, young Black professionals see accomplished professionals that look like them, they feel more inspired to, think that they can do anything. I remember in 2021, I joined the IPAC New Professionals Conference, and I'll never forget one of the panelists that was on there. She's gone on to do amazing things, but just looking through her profile, connecting with her after the event, I felt so inspired, and I felt like, what, I feel like I can do anything and everything if I can see people like this. And I mean, even the panelists we have today is such a good inspiration and such a, like just such a moral booster. And also one other challenge I would say, again, still building on representation, is imposter syndrome. So when you are in an organization where, where you don't see a lot of people like you, and I mean, the higher you go, the less likely you even see more people like you start to doubt yourself. You start to think whether or not you deserve what you've worked so hard for. And then it plays out in several scenarios where you're downplaying your accomplishments, downplaying your work, and you're feeling like an imposter. So yeah, these are like, just speaking from my own experience and other young professionals that I've spoken to, these are things that keep coming up, and I feel like this webinar conversation would shed a lot of light and encouragement.
Powerful, Faith. I would now turn to you, Carlin, after Faith. With your extensive experience, what challenges have you witnessed, and what steps do you think can mitigate these challenges?
Thank you so much, Yao. And I will build on some of the things that Faith spoke about. But the first thing that I wanted to say to Faith is, Faith, you are inspiring me so much. So thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you are giving us today as well. So it goes both ways. It's not only us inspiring you, you're inspiring us as well. So one of the biggest challenges that I see is that young Black people, or even older Black people, or not so young Black people, aren't allowed to truly be themselves. There is a lot of pressure to conform. There's a lot of pressure to engage in code switching. And what that means is that Black people's light aren't allowed to shine. It's not been allowed to shine to enable maximum success in the workplace. So we truly need to allow for people to show up as their authentic selves. There's a lot of calls for people to show up as their authentic selves, but then there is that pressure to conform to speech, behavior, hairstyles, style of clothes, etc. And so that can be exhausting, and it can lead to that sense of imposter syndrome that Faith has been talking about. So, we really do need to create those conditions to allow people to be who they are and to value them for what they're bringing to the table, not how they look, how they talk, how they dress, etc. There are still a lot of stereotypes and bias that exist throughout the system. There are still systemic barriers that exist despite the progress that has been made. And that does prevent some Black people, Black young professionals in particular, from advancing. And we have seen in our data in the Ontario Public Service, and I'm sure that it's the same elsewhere, that a lot of Black employees have similar or higher levels of education than some non-Black employees, but yet aren't getting the same level of advancement. So there are issues there that need to be addressed. There's still microaggressions in the workplace, and not enough people understand what microaggressions are and how they may impact people in the workplace, right? It can lead to an increase in stress, an increase in anxiety. It can compromise mental well-being and create a sense of isolation and a lack of belonging in the workplace. Faith talked about the lack of representation, which is definitely important. In the Ontario Public Service, we have made a lot of progress. I am proud to say there are 5 Black deputy ministers out of 30. So that is significant, and I would assume that there's not many other governments that can say that. So we have made a lot of progress. We still have a lot more work to do. We have a number of Black ADMs, a number of Black directors as well. And to Michelle's point, like about merit, one of the things that I will say is some of my Black colleagues in executive roles are some of the strongest that I have ever seen. So it is certainly they're not there just to fill a number or check a box. They're there because they've earned it, they deserve it, and they're killing it. I think networking challenges is also an issue. So we know that people who have very strong professional networks are able to advance in their careers generally much quicker because they have access to information, they can learn from other people, they can hear about openings that aren't advertised, etc. So traditionally, Black professionals have not had that same breadth of a network, a strong network to support them. And so that is something that I think we need to be really intentional about in terms of building those networking opportunities for Black professionals, especially for young people.
Thank you, Caroline. Time is flying, but Michelle, we would want to hear your thoughts on this critical issue as well.
Thanks, Yao. My fellow panelists that have addressed the question have done an excellent job, and I'm feeling so inspired right now. I'm sitting here nodding my head along. This is fantastic. What I'll do is I'll just take a different angle onto two themes that have been raised so far. So workplace culture. A large number of new Black professionals are just happy to have a job. When, you know, like you get that full-time job, you've been doing part-time gig service jobs for so long. In those part-time jobs, yes, valuable skills are developed, but transferring that to the professional environment, how do you dress? How do you carry yourself? How do you fit in? What do you say? How do you respond in certain situations? These are all challenges that young Black professionals in their first new professional job will face, most likely, especially if they are from a low-income background without that middle class support within their families to help guide them and pass knowledge along to them. And so my fellow panelists have touched on the importance of mentoring, getting a support group. That is one way to learn and build and overcome that vulnerability of entering the workplace. The other point I'll quickly cover is career growth and development. So again, we tend to be just so happy to get this job, right? And then it's like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna just excel at this job, right? But we need to be more than that. To grow and show our value, we need to be more than that. And that is something that I think it takes a while once you enter that professional workplace to understand. So what I would say is be informed and then use that information to support your career progression. And the value of mentorship, people that can tell you what is really going on is key to supporting you in this situation. So I'll stop there, yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. It is important to mention that, to reiterate, I would say that mentorship is very important. I will not go back to that, but Caroline, you said something interesting, and looking towards the future, what actions do you believe should be taken now to create equitable pathway for young Black professionals? Caroline.
Thank you very much, Yao. So yeah, I think that this is probably the most important question, right? Like what can we be doing now? And so I think that organizations, particularly leaders in organizations, they need to better educate themselves on what some of the issues are. And not just the surface level, but understanding the deeply rooted systemic issues and barriers that have been in place and that continue to be in place, right? You cannot solve a problem until you fully understand it. So most notably, I think it's important for leaders to understand systems of privilege and power that exist in organizations and how to start to dismantle some of those and disrupt some of those, right? Because you need to remove those barriers, especially when it comes to hiring practices, development, promotional opportunities, etc., in order to truly make change. And so you have to use a multi-pronged approach. There's not a one solution, one silver bullet that's going to fix all of the problems. So there needs to be a full suite of policies and practices and programs that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I touched on it before, but I think inclusion is really, really key. I think it's fairly easy to get diverse numbers, to get people in the door. It's what you do with them when they're in the door. How are you treating them? What opportunities are you providing for them? Does their voice really matter when they're sitting at these different tables, or are they there to fill a quota, right? And we don't want to be there to fill a quota. We have something good to say. We have power in our voice. We have lots of great ideas. And so we need to have that permission to shine and to offer what we bring to the table, right? So there needs to be a lot more cultural competency training in organizations so that leaders can understand the value that people who have diverse backgrounds are going to bring, and how to bring that out so that people don't feel fearful, so that they don't feel the imposter syndrome, so that they don't hold back those different ideas and thoughts that they have. We talked a lot about mentorship, sponsorship, and networking opportunities. That's absolutely one of the keys that needs to be put in place as well. We talked as well about collecting data. So making sure that you actually use that data to do a full analysis on what's working, what's not, what are the problems. But I think most importantly, what needs to be done is organizations need to engage, listen to, and amplify the voices of young Black professionals. They need to actively listen to the experiences and the perspectives of young Black professionals and the Black community, and incorporate that feedback into all of these different practices and processes, etc., to ensure that we have greater inclusion and greater diversity. Folks who are not the ones experiencing these issues shouldn't be the ones just making up how to solve them without the input of those who are feeling it. So people need to listen. And finally, I think it's about giving the support and the space that young Black professionals need to be able to be unique, to be able to question the status quo, to be able to help the organization to innovate and thrive and not feel the need to conform to the norm and to what everyone else does and thinks.
Perfect. Michelle, I would want to stay with this question, but you highlight what's change. A new job brings change, and change is not inevitable, but also necessary for growth. What advice will you offer to young Black professionals in navigating change and being adaptable, Michelle?
Change is a part of life, right? Change is constant, whether it's within the institutions we work in, our personal or professional lives, and even our bodies. Change is there. So my advice is tied to a lot of what we've already said. Look at change as an opportunity. When you do so, it can be empowering. It opens up venues for you that, you know, your colleague who sees the change coming as a negative will not be able to recognize. You can recognize that as an opportunity and seize it. In terms of skills that you'll need, you know, resiliency, adaptability, flexibility, these are things that will need to be a part of the reality of embracing change, and will be very instrumental in coming out on the other side in a positive way when you're in situations of transformation. You also need to advocate for yourself to ensure that your interests and career goals are recognized as the change is taking place. Don't wait until things are decided, and then you raise your hand. use what you have to offer to the organization to educate change leaders about what you can bring to the new direction. And that's another way of me saying, speak up. Don't stay silent. Volunteer to take on that challenging task that no one else wants to do. And then get support from your network that will help you set yourself up for success in delivering on that new thing that you've taken on. You also need to invest in yourself. So if, for example, the transformation is related to something like moving away from being a data cruncher to service delivery. In an example like this, look to see what you can do to invest in continuous learning to strengthen your service delivery chops, right? And then let the change leaders know that you're doing this. Seek their advice on, what courses to take. How can I upgrade my skills to be a part of the new organization and be able to continue to contribute constructively. And finally, growth mindset. Cultivate that, keep that with you. Whatever you're doing, how can I keep growing? What tools do I need? Who do I need to reach out to? And how can I harness that and put that together to strengthen my self-development professionally, but also personally?
Thank you. We can, unfortunately, time is flying, but we have many questions now. Faith, I would love to very quickly listen to your insights on staying flexible and resilient in the face of new challenges, because you are the youngest public servant here. I would love to hear from you. And there are many questions that Caroline and Michelle will be very helpful for that. Okay, Faith.
Thank you, Yao. I mean, I feel like Michelle has said everything, but this is what I would say. For me personally, I like to think that there's a lot to Faith Babalola that she hasn't even seen yet. So the skills that I bring to the forefront that is known is because I've given myself the chance to allow myself use them, through new challenges. So when there's a new challenge, it just gives me the opportunity to explore another skill that is yet to be developed but is dormant. So just keeping that, that heart to learn would always spark a childlike curiosity. And with a childlike curiosity always comes an excitement, and then you're really, ready to dig deep and want to know more about it. So yes, I would say, keep a heart to learn. Know that there is more to you than just one career. I like to think about a career as a portfolio. So different, like you are developing different parts of you that, you would need one day, and there isn't one part of you that you think you've known yet. There's a lot to you that you're yet to know, and new challenges would always expose a new part of you.
Now I can open the floor. We have many questions from everybody. I want to thank you, Michelle, Faith, and Caroline. One question, I believe, Michelle or Caroline, if you can help us, what advice do you have for managing and dealing with microaggression in the workplace, coming from both colleagues or management, senior leaders? I think often we hear that, and with your experience, how can you advise us? Michelle, I will start with you.
Thanks, Yao. So personally, I've had to deal with, racism, discrimination, microaggression, and still do. One of my interesting insights for myself was I thought that as I moved my career up into the executive ranks, some of that would disappear, because by being in the executive rank, it's proven that I'm excellent. I'm able to do the job. I've achieved it. So I would have left that behind. That's not the case. It's there regardless of what level you are at, however you've progressed your career. So that was an insight for me. In terms of managing it, it's learning what do you focus on, right? Deciding when to let go, what to challenge, and when to put my foot down and fight back hard. And I've had to do that, right? But we know we cannot fight everything. And so that's a part of the decision making that goes into real time. As this is happening, what do I do? And it takes a lot of energy to work through that and come to a decision very quickly on navigating the response to the situation you're in. The situation, who said it, right? Who's doing this? A lot of these things, again, you learn through experience, through talking to others, how to manage it. I cannot give a one advice, quite frankly, Yao, beyond what I've said, because again, it's you know, if the deputy, which I know would not happen, but said something that I take as a microaggression, do I feel empowered to speak up in that moment if I've just entered the public service? Now, that's a weird example because the odds of the two coming together would be challenging, but I'm just highlighting the power dynamics of being in that situation and how one can react. So I'll leave it there and turn it back over to you, Yao.
Thank you, Michelle. We have many questions, actually very interesting, but Caroline, now you are a deputy minister, and one question is related to life and work balance. So how, I can read the question, how can we keep a balanced life between family and work at a higher role and position? You are a perfect example, and I think you can guide us through your journey.
Sure. So happy to take this one on, but I will tell you that I do not have the solution. I am still looking for it, but I do have a little bit of advice. Given that I am a mom of 6, I do have a lot on my plate with being a deputy minister. So one of the things that has really worked for me is for me to reframe what balance means. So earlier in my career, I thought balance meant this every single day, that work and life always had to be like this. Sometimes balance looks like this some days and this some days. And so there are times where you do have to make some trade-offs and determine, you know, what is my priority for this particular day, week, moment, etc. And there are going to be times where you're going to have to put a lot into work, and you're going to have to lean on your support system. Hopefully you have a support system to help with home. And then there are going to be the opposite times. Sometimes my kids have some really important stuff going on, and I need to be there with my children because my family does come first at the end of the day. And I need to lean on my work family to help that out, right? But overall, for me, what I have been, I would say, pretty successful at doing is setting some boundaries in terms of, here's what I can do in any particular day. Like, here's when I'm going to be available. I'm going to need to log off for, you know, these particular hours. If there's something else I need to do, I'm going to come back to it later. So, you know, I have been very successful, I would say, most days anyway, at working in that type of a manner. But there's going to be days where it's not going to be perfect. And we're still going to have to figure out like how we can work through our lives. So I'm just saying it's not necessarily realistic to think as you move up that you're always going to have a perfect balance, but there are things that you can do. The other thing that I would say that I have learned is that taking care of myself, physically, mentally, etc., has helped me to be able to deal with those moments where I need more resilience, where I do have more on my plate. So even if it is taking, you know, a few minutes out of my day to meditate, to catch my breath, to do whatever I need to do to come back stronger, I've been doing that. And this is where my hot yoga comes into play. It really helps me to balance that out. So sorry, I don't have a magic bullet on that one, but you know, it is really about trying to figure out at any given time, where you need to put your priorities and how you can manage all of that.
Honesty matters here, Colleen, and I can thank you and say that it's never easy to make a choice, to make sustainable choice sometimes when you have to think about your life and work. But many questions remain. I will stay with one aspect of our conversation, mentorship, and how, if you want to move up, what will be your last thoughts you want to share with our people who are online with us today? I will start with you, Faith, because you have a lot of experience, even if you are the youngest. Faith.
Oh, well, first I would say mentorship isn't just about what you want to get from somebody. I think it has to start first from a place of caring, treating this person first as human, and just generally being concerned about the other person. And I would say in my own career, I'm an introvert, and it could be really hard navigating networking. So I've had to go through both direct and indirect mentorship. Direct in the sense that I have a one-on-one with this person, and indirect in the sense that I really admire what you do. I follow you very closely, and then I'm just taking notes and observing, which still works. So if you're an introvert on the call and you feel intimidated by networking events, that's also a way to go. Overall, I would say it's okay to appear stupid. It's okay not to know where you go to a networking event. It's okay. I think it's about being courageous while still being vulnerable. And at the end of the day, we're all still figuring it out. We'd make mistakes, but the most important thing is we learn from our mistakes.
Thank you, David. Unfortunately, time is over. It's 1:58, and I would love to continue this conversation, but I want to thank you for the opportunity you gave our panelists and myself today. Just the February month is very important for Black history, but we have to support each other forever. So thank you, and I pass the torch to you, David.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to our panelists. I've certainly learned today that hot yoga is clearly the secret. If you can manage 6 children and a big career, I had no idea. I've never tried it, but now I'm feeling like I have to. I do want to thank all of our speakers for their authentic conversation and for sharing. I know it takes a lot to share, but you've all done that. You've all given us something about yourself, and I know people really appreciate that. Certainly from the audience, what I learned is let's not wait until next February. So let's plan on doing another event. For those questions that we didn't get to, I am going to ask our panelists if they'd be willing to work with us to answer them. And we'll put them in our monthly newsletter, which is IPAC Connects. So we'd love to have just a summary of today, and we will share the recording with everyone. And I do want to make just a quick pitch for our Leadership Summit, which is on March the 7th. I'm very pleased to announce that Governor General Mary Simon will be one of our keynote speakers. We've got topics on artificial intelligence, the housing crisis, the energy transition. We've got municipal leaders. We've got leaders from across the country. We're going to talk about how they're pivoting, how they're dealing with all the change that they're facing. So I hope you will attend. It's on March the 7th. It's a virtual event. And again, thank you very much to our speakers, but I do want to give a special thank you to Faith, because Faith did not have the experience that our other speakers did. And I know it was a big step for her, but I told her she'd do a great job, and I thought she did. So please join me in a round for Faith. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and we hope to see you at our next event. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.